بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Today we're going to be continuing about the story of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Khadija knew of an old man in Mecca who was very pious and had a great knowledge of books. She felt sure he would be able to advise them about her husband's experiences in the cave. Muhammad and Khadija went to the man, whose name was Wara bin Nawal, to tell him about what has happened. One said that indeed prophethood had been bestowed by Allah Almighty upon Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He added that prophet will mock him. He added that people would mock him, but Allah would assist him and those who are virtuous would follow him. Khadija radiallahu anha was very happy and she offered thanks to Allah for choosing his husband Muhammad as his prophet. As wife of the prophet, she understood the great honor given to her by Allah and gave thanks for that too. In addition to being the devoted wife of the prophet, she had the honor to become the first to believe in his prophet. She was the first Muslim among the adult females. The first 5 Muslims lived close to the Prophet. The first 5 Muslims were Khadija, Abu Bakr, Ayman, Zayd, and Ali. They already believed that Allah was the creator of the universe, but now, after the Prophet told them about the incident at the cave of Hira, they said they also believed that he was the Prophet of Allah. They also made greater efforts to remember Allah and began praying to Allah with more devotion. They believed that every man should have faith in Allah, His Prophet, and His revelations. They also believed that only those who had faith in Allah would reach salvation, and those without faith would be punished by Allah. They were anxious that their friends and relatives should also know the truth, so they quickly passed on the good news to them. Their relatives and friends were so embraced, Islam spread the news too in real time. For about 2 years, Islam was spread in this way. During the time, there was no serious oppositions to Islam because it was the faith of trusted relations and close friends. 2 years after his prophethood, Allah guided the Prophet through his revelations to preach among his tribesmen that there is only one Allah and that he has no partner. The Prophet ﷺ went to Mount Safa, situated in the center of Mecca, a short distance from the Kaaba. He called his tribesmen, and when they had assembled, he said, "If I tell you that beyond this mountain there is an army which is going to invade you, will you believe it to be true or untrue?" They all said, "We will believe it to be true, since you have always spoken the truth." Then Prophet Muhammad said, "I will tell you that the army of death is after you. I warn you of the worth of Allah, and I am His Prophet. You should accept this as true and believe it. Stop worshipping idols, worship Allah. Obey His commands, reject bad actions, and turn from them so that you may attain salvation." On hearing this, the tribesmen became angry. They worshipped many idols and also kept some of them in the Kaaba. People from all over the Arabia and beyond came to see the Kaaba to lay their offerings before these idols, and the tribesmen took these offerings for their own use. They were caretakers of the Kaaba, custodians of the idols, and it brought them a good income. The Prophet, the Prophet was now asked them to give up their ways of life with all its advantages. An uncle of the Prophet, Abu Lahab, cried loudly, "O Muhammad, have you called us here only for this?" Many of his tribesmen then listened. When the Prophet ﷺ spoke commands of him, many good people were listening. But those leaders who in their hearts worshipped idols and clung to their evil ways became angry when they heard about him. They believed that he was threatening their leadership. They turned against the Prophet and his companions, who were still very few in number. They made the Muslims live very miserable. They threw down thorns in their paths and pelted them with dirt from the rooftops. They often begged them as well. Arabs since before the prophethood of Muhammad had always held the Kaaba to be the house of Allah and for a place for the whole of mankind. Even animals were not teased or killed near the Kaaba. But when Prophet went there to offer his prayers, the unbelievers tortured him. Once they put a rope around his neck and he was praying and choked him. At another time, they put a camel's messy intestines on his back. The non-Muslims tried many times to murder the Prophet. Once they attacked him near the Kaaba. Harith ibn Abi Hada, who witnessed the attack, rushed to defend the Prophet. He was struck down by the sword below and died on the spot. He was the first martyr to die for the sake of Islam. Arabia had an extremely hot climate. When the sun burns the deserts and it's difficult to walk on it. The non-Muslims tortured the Muslims by making them lie on their bare backs on the scorching sand at midday. Then they put heavy stones on their bodies so that they cannot move. When a believer in Allah named Khabbab radiallahu anha embraced Islam, the non-Muslims put him on a bed of charcoal and one of them stood on his chest so that he could not move. The scars on his body were visible for his rest of the life. Another Muslim called Bilal radiallahu anhu was laid on sweltering sand at noon and a heavy stone was placed on his chest. But he continued to say, La ilaha illallah. There is no God but Allah. Then the non-Muslims fastened a rope around his neck and dragged him from one end to the another end of the city. Even then Bilal continued to repeat only one word, Ahad. Allah is one. Amongst the other Muslims who suffered were Ammar and his parents. His mother Sumayya anha was stabbed to death by Abu Jahl, who was the Muslims' greatest enemy, while Ammar's father Yasser was tortured to death. Shuhaib, a friend of Ammar, suffered the same treatment. When Uthman accepted Islam, he was tied up, harshly beaten by non-Muslims, including his own uncle. When Zubair declared his faith in Islam, his uncle was so angry that he tied a scorched mat around him and forced him to inhale the smoke. The non-Muslims tormented and persecuted the Muslims in many ways, but not a single Muslim deserted Islam. All that they suffered. This was because everyone who embraced Islam did not do it for any persecuted the Muslims in many ways. Not a single Muslim deserted Islam despite all they suffered. This was because everyone who embraced Islam did not do it for any benefit of wealth or from fear of others, but only because they believed in Allah. They believed that pain and sufferings in this world are nothing compared to the tortures of hell. They willingly endured all the difficulties and suffered because they were Muslims. And with this, we have completed our lesson. Jazakallahu khairan kaseera.